Hello, everyone, and welcome to this new episode of Small Talk. I'm super excited to be here today with Jenny Martin.
Hello. Hello.
Jenny, I'm really glad to see you again, and thank you for being here with us today for this new episode of Small Talk. It's our series of interviews with our trainers, where we aim to discover new stuff about the workshops. Apologies for the bells. New stuff about the workshops we are offering in very simple and informal terms. So today I'm here with Jenny, whom I met for the first time 8 years ago in London. So I'm really happy of this connection coming back to life again. So Jenny, we are here today to talk about your new product owner collaboration toolkit. It's something new for us, as in having you as a trainer. We know you are not new to training courses and training in general, and it's a new workshop as is for you as well. We are gonna dig into this a bit more right now as we speak. Jenny has extensive experience in training teams as conference speaker, and so we are very glad to have you here with us today to explore a bit more on this. As usual, you can drop your comments on the YouTube chat below. We also have launched the Small Talk on LinkedIn. So if you are on LinkedIn, hello. You can use the chat over there as well. And during the conversation, we're going to go over your question, because Small Talk is made more interactive if you ask questions, and Jenny will be more than happy to help us understand a bit more. So Jenny, let's talk about this new workshop. So what it is about?
So it's a bit like what it says on the tin. It's a whole series of techniques and practices that help you as a product owner navigate the whole product delivery lifecycle from start to finish, using a set of highly collaborative techniques that help everybody properly get work done, focus on value, accelerate delivery, align everybody to the same outcomes. And so it's sort of a mixture of we take the journey of product delivery through product definition, continuous discovery, into iterative product delivery, working through examples and case studies, but using a whole load of tools and real proper concrete practice that you can take away and go and have a go in your own environment, that are going to help you bring people together and build your confidence in your role, develop more as a product owner, all of that good stuff.
Okay, that's great. Thanks for the first introduction. We see there's a lot going on in this workshop. So for those of you who had not seen the webpage, I'm gonna just do the quick advert moment. We're talking about Product Owner Collaboration Toolkit workshop taking place in February next year. So it's going to be a 5-module workshop. You can check it out on our website. I'm going to share the link later on, so that you can refer to it. So Jenny, as you were mentioning, this workshop is mainly for product owners, but we know when it comes to collaboration and putting people together, product owner is just one part of the picture. Of course, we have many people involved that we refer to as stakeholders, but we refer to the product owner in this case as, I would guess, the leader of the facilitation process. Or is this correct? Or am I assuming something that is a bit stretched?
Yeah, so often, I guess, because one of the key roles of the product owner is sort of hunting the value and pursuing the successful outcomes of the teams, these techniques are well suited to that role, because often the product owner is taking the pen, getting people together from different parts of the organization and trying to get things moving. And so it does very much suit that role. I also, sometimes these techniques are also really useful for agile coaches, or anybody on the team that wants to be confident to guide conversations towards valuable outcomes, have structures for collaboration. So I guess one of the things, I think most of us nowadays really value collaboration because of the powers of collective intelligence and diversity and working together. But often how to collaborate successfully is a bit woolly. So you know you need to do it, but you don't necessarily know how to solve a particular challenge at this part of the life cycle. You don't necessarily know how to go about that. And so it could be useful for other roles in the team as well, where they feel that they need to steer those conversations and help the productivity of the team, I guess.
Thanks for that. So yeah, we understand, of course, it's not for product owners only. One of the things that are highlighted in the workshop description is that we are aiming at people who are not, I would say, first-time product owners. So it is required some degree of experience. How would you describe this? Why is this some kind of requirement?
Because I think it'll help ground the challenges that these techniques solve. So you know, once you've been a product owner for a while, or working in a product or an agile team, you know, you're quite frequently coming across these challenges of you know, there being a big divide between the business teams and the development teams and the product teams, or struggling to get people to work together, or struggling to involve team members early enough. And so I think if you've got a bit of experience, you can really see how these practices can properly help address those challenges. And also, whilst we do go through a lot of best practice about product development in order to frame the different parts of the life cycle and the techniques and challenges that exist there, but we don't go into massive depth about each one. So it's kind of, you're assuming that you've had a bit of experience on an agile team, either as a product owner or a coach or something like that, where these sorts of challenges are going to be familiar to you, and really you're looking to level up. You know, you're really thinking, okay, how can I be really valuable to my organization when I get back from this? You know, how can I drive the product forward? How can I be a collaboration catalyst for my organization? You know, how can I do all of this stuff? So it would be, you know, a beginner would still get some stuff out of it, but I think that you're going to get most out of it if you've got a bit of experience.
I guess from what you're saying, that for a beginner would be a matter of, how should I say, of imagining, like not having experienced it firsthand. It would be harder. It's not a matter of, a beginner wouldn't understand what you are talking about, but it would be more on the abstract kind of thing. Like, I imagine this would happen, rather than I've seen it happen 1 million times.
Exactly, and it would be a lot of content as well. It would be a lot to take away, and you know, one of the things with these types of workshops is that you really want folks that are doing it to be able to get back and apply what they've learned straight away. And so I think those with a little bit more experience might be more likely to get really hands-on and start making a difference when they get back, rather than you know, learning the ropes, or kind of doing all the rest of the early product owner stuff that you might do early in your role.
Absolutely, and you already mentioned one of the key points of our offer as Advanced Copertine when it comes to training courses, which is doing stuff and being able to take what you just learned in your own context from day one, I would say. Mm-hmm. So straight after the workshop, you need to have something to do in practice that gives value. This is also thanks to a framework that I know you also use in your trainings, which is the training from the back of the room. Mm-hmm. So that really helps in shaping training courses that are fit for doing stuff, learn how to do it, and reproduce it in your own context.
Yeah, absolutely. It's not just the steps of training from the back of the room in terms of making sure there's more hands-on than there is just kind of me at the front, particularly these days. You know, information that's out there in the public domain, you don't need me, right, to teach. It's much more about learning from each other, you know, really thinking thoughtfully about different things that come up, having the chance to try it and discuss and share ideas. But it's also about really mixing up the approaches so that everybody stays engaged and has fun. So I really believe in having fun when you're having these learning experiences, and so yeah, it'll be lots of fun as well.
Absolutely. And you're already anticipating one point we'll touch at the very end,
Okay.
which you learn when you are having fun, where you are in a relaxed environment.
Yeah.
It's not the type of situation where you need to have a stressful thing going on. This, of course, reminds all of us about school, like school as we used to, experience it. But learning is fun. We want to make it fun, and I'm sure this workshop also will be a lot of fun. Next question for me would be, since we have it in the title and you already referred to it, so what tools are we exactly talking about? Because collaboration toolkit might mean lots of things, but I know you have, tools, the actual tools.
Yeah, so I guess workshopping techniques, collaborative structures that you can use in order to work through a problem. A lot of it builds on different best practices as well. So there's techniques. If we sort of break it down and we look at product definition, that will include visioning techniques where you can really expansively think around your product vision and get the best input from the different stakeholders around you. Product strategy techniques, looking at things like lean canvas, outcome-based road mapping, things where you can get people together and harness the collective intelligence of the group and come out with a strong alignment. So these sorts of techniques, you'll be workshopping, doing work together, so individually together, coming out with something that you can use. So what I notice is that lots of folks who run workshops, they might say, oh, that was a really good workshop, but they might not come out with anything, or they might not come out with a decision or anything that is clear that actually represents work done. So all of the techniques mean that you can go into a particular session and come out feeling like you've taken the next step in terms of the product journey. So when we get into product discovery, it will include things where you're examining the problem space, examining the solution space, working your way through those things, looking at customer behaviors and personas. There's a section in there on design sprints, which can feel really intimidating to run a design sprint, but you should leave the workshop feeling that you could have a go at that. And then as we get down to the sharper end in terms of iterative delivery, we'll be looking at things that help you break down work. I have my own technique, Oopsie, which some of the big consultancy companies are using, which helps you break down work and navigate to value and know how to fit the thinking around the iterative delivery thing. So there'll be workshoppy techniques that we'll practice, but then you'll also have a whole set of Miro templates that I've been using for a long time, tried and tested. So you have those accessible to you afterwards, as well as the kind of best practice theory that they all fit into. So you'll know when to use them. And it's not prescriptive at all. So we'll also spend time looking at all the factors at play in terms of product maturity, uncertainty, complexity, the different sort of organizations that you might work in, so that you can really deliberately think about how you might use these different techniques, or if they're even appropriate, rather than just blindly following a framework. So there's also stuff in there, I'm getting excited, so I'm talking fast. There's also stuff in there about pure facilitation, how to structure any workshop, how to solve any challenge that comes up, and those principles. So you'll also come out of it feeling tooled up as a facilitator, ready to take on any kind of challenge and solve it together.
That's brilliant, Jenny, and thanks for explaining this in such detail. And also for mentioning something about the Miro templates. So this links us back to a question we just got from LinkedIn user. I'm really sad that LinkedIn doesn't show the names, but anyway, thank you for asking the question. And the question is, will the workshop be focused on in-person tools or remote ones, or some those could be applied in both cases?
Yeah, so all of the techniques that are included, I've run both in person and remotely. So during lockdown, I thought going into lockdown, I thought I could never do this online. It'll never work. And was so proved wrong. So during that time, I developed a really rich set of online tools to get the best possible outputs from a remote session. So the session itself is remote, right? So when we're doing it together, we'll be using the Miro boards, but they can all be applied in real life with sticky notes, tape, wall space. And we'll get time to talk about those and the different things you might need to consider in terms of online versus in person.
That's brilliant. Thanks, Jenny. And one thing I wanted to point out before is not only about knowing what to do, but also when not to do something. Because of course we don't like to teach, prescriptive approaches like one size fits all. You also need to be able to have the maturity, and we are aiming with our workshop and so with yours as well, to teach people, some kind of judgment and when and where you should do something, rather than saying, hey, I applied, I don't know, oopsie or what's not, and everything went wrong. Well, maybe, it was not the right time to do it or the right context.
Yeah, exactly. And so, I mean, one of the problems working in this environment of product delivery and agile and stuff is there's so much methodology and frameworks, and it can be really overwhelming. And there's also lots of arguments about who's doing it right, who's doing it the best.
Yeah.
And of course, it all depends, doesn't it? Whether you use techniques that are very much based on experimenting and probing and testing and hypothesizing, you're going to use those sorts of approaches much more when there's lots of uncertainty, or your product is newer, or you're figuring out if there's even a demand for it, versus something that's really established, where there's a lot of complexity, but something's been running for a long time. You're going to use different approaches. Some things you won't do, some things won't be necessary. And so I think as you become more growing in your roles, you start to know when to break the rules, right? You start to think, okay, I understand the rules, I understand the principles, and I know when to break them, and I know when to confidently break them, because I understand the context. And I think that reflects a certain level of mastery in terms of your practice. And I guess that's really where I'm trying to help folks move them along. Yeah.
That's super, Jenny. Thanks a lot. So yeah, knowing the context and when to do stuff is key.
Yeah.
If we wanted to sum it all up in like some sentences, or to see really why are we here and why are we doing this? So what is the problem we are actually aiming to solve with this workshop? You already referred to something, but let's try and close this first part. Probably that's where I'm getting at.
Yeah. So the one I see all the time is a disconnect between product and engineering and or the business, or all three. And so I really believe in this power of bringing people together, right? So I've definitely got collaboration bias. Okay, but it's not actually easy to get people in a room together and start solving these challenges together. And this course will help you have the confidence to do that, and to sort of, I think I mentioned, be a collaboration catalyst in your organization. So that's one thing. I think the other thing is about pursuing value. So if we're going to be effective working in product teams or agile teams, we need to be hunting value all the time. And it's hard to know how much thinking to do, when to defer things till later. How do you involve everybody in the right amount of detail and get that balance right? So I guess the second thing is it's helping you stay aligned, pursuing the value. So there's lots of really useful prioritization techniques in there, for example, where you can get senior members together and get them aligned on something. So it's going to help you stay on the path to value. And I guess the other thing is, the other thing I notice a lot is teams that are in the solution space. So they're not given problems to solve, they're given solutions to implement. And of course, we often don't spend long enough in the problem space. I guess the other thing is about helping teams move into that highly productive space where they're solving problems, but also giving them the language to use, which is going to help sort of stealthily change the mindset around them so that they can become more empowered over time. So it's not always easy to solve those problems, but if you start behaving in a certain way and using the right language around outcomes and value, then it tends to sort of have this effect where it grows from within a team, right? Those practices can grow. So it's empowering as well, for product owners and folks that are trying to achieve those things.
Super, super interesting. It reminds me of a workshop we are doing now. It wasn't meant to, I wasn't, pointing at that, but it's another workshop about basically having the confidence and language and experience to, I wouldn't say to convince people, but, to kind of prove your point and with the aim of bringing value rather than, proving I am right, you are wrong, because that's not the point. So that was one thing I wanted to mention that resonated with me. And the other thing is about terminology, and you already referred to language. So of course we are talking at least about 3 areas that you mentioned that are business, engineering, and product people. There is more, of course, but these are like the main ones. So how do we make sure that, and also you refer to when to involve whom and in which level of detail?
Yes, yeah.
So recreating the context and all of that is a nightmare. let's not lie about it. So what can be an effective way of achieving this, and where to start, I would say.
Yeah. And I guess part of that is so we're going in this course, we're going right through from product definition through discovery and into implementation. And I believe that it's really important to involve some key roles really early on, because if teams have the context and an understanding of the background and the environmental factors and decision making that goes around problems and initiatives, then they tend to make good decisions. So some of the early workshops early on in the life cycle of product development will be targeting key roles, not necessarily everybody, that's really expensive, to participate. And then as you go through the different sections of the course, you'll be involving more people. The roles will change slightly, and you'll know who needs to be involved in there. And so it's not about volume of people in those sessions. It's about having representation from the different areas of expertise so that you can reduce rework. So getting people together to kick the tires on things and align to direction and understand the vision might feel like a lot of money, but it's actually an investment in terms of reducing rework later on and achieving that high level of shared understanding. So for each of the different steps that we'll go through, we'll be talking about who to involve, when and why, but also a lot of the outputs from some of the collaborative practices that are included in the course are really easy to share and get feedback on. So you have some evidence of having done this work that then you can easily get feedback on from people who weren't there. So you should get a good sense of that coming out of the course, but it's different in different environments, but there's plenty of time to talk about those things for different situations.
Thanks, that's great. I'm really looking forward to it and getting excited as well. It looks like a lot of problem solving technique that we are gonna see together. Now a bit more on your background, I would say, but more on like, how did you get interested into this? How did it start? Now, as I mentioned at the beginning, we are here with the Product Owner Collaboration Toolkit workshop, which per se is a new thing. But as we mentioned, it's, didn't happen overnight. It's part of your career and how you've been working so far. So when did you decide it, like, I want to kind of work on this and help teams, becoming better at communication?
Yeah. So I guess I've worked in tech for about 25 years. I fell into it with a psychology degree actually, and then spent a lot of time being trained and taken to Dallas and boot camped and all that stuff. And I spent a long time in various big delivery roles in terms of project and product delivery. What interested me about the sort of agile space is this going back 20 years when it started, and I was quite involved in that in my organization. I guess I was naturally drawn to some of the practices because I've always believed in getting people together. It always has made sense to me that why would you sit in a separate room reviewing a long document when you can get together and quickly talk about it and work through it. So I was drawn to it from there. I guess I've been training in agile practices for over 10 years and being more and more drawn to the highly collaborative practices. I now work as the last 3 years I've been fully independent. I now work as a facilitator and a trainer and a coach, and my psychology roots are coming out more and more in terms of really appreciating that it's all down to happy, motivated, fulfilled, thriving teams. And I feel like that myself, like I'm thriving when I'm around folks who are coming together and all of their wonderful diversity is enriching this incredible outcome through collaboration. And so it's something I really, really believe in, and I notice and experience every time I work with teams who are working well together and doing this stuff. And now I'm in this really privileged position where I can be a bit more discerning about what I do. And so I'm able, because I've been facilitating, doing pure facilitation stuff and high performing teams related stuff as well for a while, I can bring in all the pure facilitation techniques as well. So it's like coming together, recognizing that a lot of these roles in tech teams and product teams, you need to be a facilitator, right? You need to have that confidence. So I guess it's this really nice for me. I'm really excited about this because it's a culmination of all that experience and all of those practices. Some of these workshops I've been doing for years and years, and really honing and honing and honing, coming together with opportunities to help teams and individuals flourish. So yeah, that was probably a long answer, but I'm quite passionate about it. So
that's great. We are happy that this is all coming together, and in the form of this workshop, where one of the points you mentioned that I'd like to stress is there's also a lot that even pure facilitators could take out of this. Not all of the 5 days, of course. Some stuff might be a bit too specific, but in general, as we mentioned, this is suitable also for people who just want to go next level when it comes to facilitating. And the focus on remote workshop is, I think, fundamental, not only because we were forced to do it, all of us in the last 3 and something years, but also because, like it or not, it's kind of here to stay. And we all now, I'm really summarizing it in very, very simple terms and not giving the full value of what your workshop is about, but just doing endless Zoom or Meet calls or what's not, with no purpose and no facilitation. Sometimes even that is a skill that we should learn a bit more, rather than spending hours on meetings forever with no agenda and what's not. Some are very simple tricks, but I feel myself when we have when there is someone facilitating this in a proper way, the value out of it's like 10 million times more. So
yeah,
it's also part of it. I know it's not all of it, but
yeah, it really is. And I guess I really feel that if I'm in a meeting or a workshop that doesn't have any tangible outcome, where we're not making progress or we're not focusing on the priority, I actually start to feel quite physically uncomfortable.
Exactly.
So yeah, when we do get together, It needs to be to do really awesome stuff and be hyper productive, as well as have fun and be kind to each other, right? But yeah, I agree.
Yeah, it's not all about it, right? That's good. Okay, so we already referred to, we are getting towards the end. So if any of the folks want to send us questions, Jenny will be happy to answer. And we also get some insight from the audience. One of the things we already mentioned is, of course, we are not going to be sitting for 5 half days watching slides. There's a lot of practice. Of course, as Jenny already mentioned, you need to kind of know the rules before you break them. So there is going to be some theory, of course. So what's the balance you're trying to achieve, and how are these 5 half days going to actually work when it comes to theory and practice?
So I guess there's less than a quarter of me doing this, and most of it will be actually doing stuff together, working in breakout rooms, working as a team, even sort of learning from the world and sharing knowledge and teaching each other. There'll be lots of games and involvement in the techniques that themselves, which are fun. And so yeah, there's a real balance, and I work really hard to make sure that everybody in the group is able to contribute to their fullest and feels comfortable to do that, comfortable to contribute and learn and challenge and bring their best. So that involves it being a real mixture, and of course, being on any call for 3.5 hours, you need to stay engaged. So it'll be opportunities to re-energize, and hopefully that time will go quickly. But when I've run a lot of online training over the last few years, and so I try and structure it so that there's a real variation, so that you're not just sitting there nodding,
Absolutely,
looking at your Zoom screen, so it doesn't feel like that. So yeah, at least 3/4 practice.
super. Yeah, we know how important that is, right? To just change context and just even standing up, or the basics. But of course, glad that will be part of the workshop as well. Let's see if we have a comment. Yes, Marco Heimsoff, thanks for the question. How are the methods different or overlapping between product owner collaboration and domain modeling collaboration?
So I guess there are similarities, right, in collaboration between these different areas, and I think it's because regardless of what your role is, you look for patterns, and you see teams using certain patterns to help understand the space. And so, for example, event storming, where you've got different disciplines in the room, and you're looking at the domain, and that awesome thing happens where the business representative is wildly kind of gesturing around something they see as a particular bounded context, and you think, aha, there's the aha moment. In these practices, we're not using event storming, but there's practices that inspect the process and look for ways to examine it in a way that you're able to break something down quickly or know where to start. So there aren't particular domain-driven design practices sitting in it. You won't do event storming, but I guess our need to unpack a problem and use certain patterns to do that, like narrative or process, could be similar. I don't know if that answered the question.
Thanks, Jenny, and thanks, Marco, for the question. What I gathered from what you said before is that whether it's online or remote, we still have like the usual sticky notes kind of tooling. So that's in a way kind of similar to event storming, but as you mentioned, not really.
Yeah.
Not
yeah,
exactly the same.
Yeah, I mean, you think there's story mapping as well, right? Which is another similar type thing that come out from people trying to solve similar problems in slightly different ways. But yeah, it doesn't cover the same techniques as in domain modeling collaboration.
Thanks, Jenny, and thanks, Marco. Of course, feel free to drop other questions if you have. We are, as I said, going towards the end. I have another couple of questions for Jenny. One is, every time we talk about communication, there's also some part of it about feedback. I don't know if this will be the center of the workshop, but of course, when we are talking about, you mentioned before, when we have to present something to some stakeholders, you might find ways so that you receive feedback to the point and quickly. Can you elaborate on that a bit more? And is there any tools we're gonna experience about how to give and possibly receive feedback as well?
Well, I guess that there's feedback in a few different ways here. I think feedback is really, really central to this in terms of it will help you optimize your product delivery process for feedback and learning. So for me, that's a really fundamental thing. All of these practices from start to finish are helping you get feedback early, helping involve the right people early so that they're aligned, helping remove assumptions and misunderstandings. So it's all geared for that optimization around feedback, without a doubt. In terms of giving and receiving feedback into a personal level, not really in this course. It's included in other courses that I run around teams. The outputs from the collaborative practices should allow you to go and sense check your understanding with somebody who wasn't there.
That's great. Thanks for clarifying that, because of course, yeah, there are many ways of meaning feedback, and what are we talking about is feedback as in getting feedback. How should I say that? Towards the product process, rather than
Yes.
how you told me that made me feel bad.
Exactly. Yeah.
Let's put
And
it this way.
yeah, and it's optimizing for getting feedback from the real world
Yeah.
as early as possible. If you're in the context of something that's brand new, or you're not sure about whether or not you're solving the right problem, then that feedback's going to be like, that feedback loop's going to be out to the real world. So yes, there's a lot of one of the continuous discovery kind of principles is about the feedback loop and learning and getting the right feedback from the right people as early as possible.
Thanks, Jenny. Now, we mentioned before the call very briefly, and was not planned, that you are, of course, as you mentioned, very busy right now and working with a team. And one of the main issues is, of course, how to put people on the same page. Would you be happy to share some like real world experiences on that? Of course, now we were talking about something that is based on your work, but in the workshop kind of environment. But what happens in the real world?
I guess it comes back to the people thing again, doesn't it? In that we're all, we're all very, this is why I'm interested in psychology. We're all very different. We all have very different personalities and ways of working and brains. And I think what can happen when we've got different teams that might form into different silos is that sometimes you don't have an appreciation of the challenges and needs of the other roles outside of your team or even within the team. And almost all, when I'm working with teams to help them overcome various challenges, it almost always comes down to some kind of misunderstanding or communication or some sort of assumption that was made or some perception. And so that's what makes me kind of value the opportunities when we get together as humans and understand needs. It's a bit like having the customer in the room and understanding their needs properly, understanding the problems that they're actually trying to solve and understanding how they're currently solving them and how much they're investing in that. You're not going to know unless you ask them. And if you ask them the right questions, and if you have empathy for the challenges that they have, I think we can apply a lot of that within our own teams. So yeah, getting people together and building that environment where you can sort of authentically challenge in a space where everybody's able to contribute, is when you can get really amazing stuff done.
Thanks, Jenny. So getting to the end with the very last one. If you have any last minute comments or questions, please do so now. We always like to close. I know it's a very difficult question because there's so much going on and many resources, but I'll fire it anyway. Do you have any suggested materials, whether it's books, videos, or articles for our community, stuff that you would recommend? Without...
Okay, so I guess a few. So one of the things that really, one of the books, this is an old one now, Bridging the Communication Gap from Gojko Adzik, was pre any of his stuff around BDD, just about the value of getting the right roles together. That's something that influenced me quite a lot, I guess 10, 12 years ago. Game storming, I'm looking up on my bookshelf. So I became really interested in the powers of collaboration and getting together and working together when I had the game storming book, which I guess is also probably nearly 10 years old. I believe there's a version 2 coming out, which is quite exciting. In terms of videos, I'm always drawn to Jeff Patton's videos and podcasts and conference talks and things like that. I love his recent analogy that I watched something a few months ago where he's saying, be a doctor, don't be a waiter where you're taking a list. What would you like? What would you like? What would you like? Be a doctor. Tell me where it hurts, which I really love. So that was just a lovely little nugget from him. So yeah, I could go on, but I won't.
I like the fundamentals and lovely quote from Jeff Patton. Thanks a lot for sharing that. So I guess that is it. Thanks a lot, Jenny, and thanks all the folks who were with us together, for this first small talk. I guess we'll see you. Let me share the link very quickly so you can refer to the workshop. And we hope to see you in February next year at Jenny's remote workshop. So it starts on the 7th of February. Product owner collaboration toolkit. Jenny, thanks a lot. It's been really insightful and valuable.
Thank you very much. And happy Friday, everybody, even though it might not be Friday when you're watching it, but it can have a pretend Friday if it's not.
Pretend it's Friday, indeed. And we'll see you next time. We have a new workshop we just announced today with Barry O'Reilly on residuality theory. So we're going to do a small talk with Barry on Friday, 17th November. So we hope to see you there. We are going to, as we just did with Jenny and our other trainers, find out more about this workshop. So make sure you are there. Oh, I have one last comment. Well, thanks a lot, everyone. And we'll see you soon. Bye-bye.